This is Leroy Davis with the Veterans View Show, and we wanted to do a quick editorial before you watch the debate. We had a debate on September the 16th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at Troy University, Phoenix City campus. And we want to thank Troy University for allowing us to utilize that facility for the debate. We also want to thank our partners. We want to thank Beam TV, and we want to thank everybody who supported us. Our debate was a great debate considering two people did not show. And I wanted to let you, the viewers, know that why those people did not show. But before I do that, I want to let you know that the opinion of this editorial is the opinion of the Veterans View Show and not that of Beam TV. Now, getting into the debate, we had Shamari Figures to show, and he's running for the 2nd Congressional District here in Alabama, the new established 2nd Congressional District. Miris Dobson, she did not show, and I'm going to read to you what her communications specialist sent to me, because I want everyone to know in the viewing area that we did invite these people to attend the debate. It said, Mr. Davis, unfortunately, due to an unexpected scheduling conflict, we will need to reschedule the filming originally planned for this coming Monday. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause and appreciate your understanding and efforts in coordinating this opportunity. One of the things that I want to let you know is that when you schedule a debate, it's not easy to reschedule. So unfortunately, we will not be rescheduling the debate because it's too close to the election. Now, we had a second debate, not a second debate, but a second person on the debate, which is Miss Belinda Strickland, and she's running for probate judge. And Miss Strickland did show up, but her counterpart, Miss Mott, did not show up for the debate. And Miss Mott just, she sent a message as well saying that she would be out of town for the debate and therefore she could not attend. And you know, I think it's important to you, the viewer, to see the people who want to represent you. And if you cannot make a debate, but you want to represent the citizens of Phoenix City and Russell County and of the 2nd Congressional District, then the citizens need to think twice, do their own research, and say whether or not you want this candidate to represent you when they won't even come to a debate to tell you what they stand for, what they're running for. So this editorial, as I said earlier, is about Veterans View Show and not that of Beam TV. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Veterans View Show. And today we will have candidates that's representing the probate judge office and the 2nd Congressional District. So it was actually scheduled to be a debate, but some people didn't show. But we're going to move on with the debate, and we're going to start with Belinda Strickland, who's currently running for the probate judge office. Ms. Strickland, introduce yourself to our viewers, please.
Hello, hi there. I'm Belinda Strickland, and I am one of your local attorneys here that does probate law, and I am running for the Russell County probate judge's position here on November the 5th.
Anything else?
Because you know, I could talk forever, so I'll just do a little short synopsis.
A little short.
That I am from the Chattahoochee Valley area. I'm a military brat. I was born on Fort Benning, grew up in the area, and then I left to go to the military. I spent 21 years in the military, and afterwards I came back home. And while I came back home, I started doing a lot of charity work. I got really involved in the community, and I felt that I needed to do more, so I went back to college, decided to get my doctorate in law, so I went to Auburn University, got my bachelor's in political science and pre-law, and then I went to Faulkner University, a private Christian university down in Montgomery. I went full-time for 7 years, commuted every day, both directions. I completed my law degree. I actually focused it all in probate law and mediation with some family law, and I'm actually a certified mediator.
Okay, that's great. Now, what I want to do before we really get into the interviewing section, And let's focus a little bit on your military experience and some of the places you have been so you can bring that back and tie it in with what you're planning on doing in the probate judge office should you win that seat.
Absolutely. So, and that's a great question. When I joined the military, I actually did the Navy first. So I spent 10 years in the Navy.
Go Navy.
And after that, I did 11 years in the Army. I think the unique thing about being in the military in both branches is it made me extremely diverse. I traveled all over the world, all over the country. I was stationed in numerous different areas with lots of different cultures and ethnical changes, I would say. And because of that, I met so many different people that I was able to make connections, learning to understand all the different types of cultures that I'm going to be around and the different age levels and all the different types of situations and problems. Because you know, when you're in the military, especially when you become a leader, such as I became a chief warrant officer, you have to deal with a lot of issues. A lot of soldiers or sailors that end up having problems with their families, having problems with their, whether it's a spouse, their kids, their job, but they go through a lot of different issues, and I got a lot of skills for mediation out of that.
So would it be safe to say in the military you learn how to adjust, adapt, and improvise?
Always, and overcome, all the time.
All right. So now I want you to tell me about your family. You're married, how many children you have, and just something brief about your family.
Okay, absolutely. So, well, I am married. I'm married to Jimmy Strickland. You guys probably all know him from Strickland Tree Service.
Okay, we're going to keep it in the family. So now let's get to some of the probate things. Now, what is it that you want to accomplish should you be elected to the probate office?
Well, the office itself runs very well. I mean, what's happening now, there's a lot of great systems in place, and I really appreciate the way it is run, but there are some slight changes I would do. But I would say that probably one of the biggest things I would like to see change is to be able to get more funding for the mental health area. So I plan on working with the local legislators and our county commissioners in order to try and increase the amount of funding that we have so that we can put it back into the system so that we actually have enough beds to go around for the amount of people that we may have to commit. We have a real large shortage in mental facility space, and that's one of the biggest things I'm going to lobby for to try and fix.
Now, would you be willing to negotiate, which you're going to have to do should you win that office, like with East Alabama Mental Health, East Alabama Hospital in Opelika, because that's where our beds are.
That's exactly correct. And actually, that's probably the biggest goal that I have, because I work with them on a daily basis. Because being an attorney and already doing this for my job as probate, that I work with them on a daily basis when I'm in court, and I already know they've shut down one of the facilities just recently, and East Alabama has now recently changed their name because they've been through a merger through another system. And you are correct, there's not enough beds, and I'm very close to the individuals working there.
Okay, and now just to switch it, to flip-flop it, now beds for youth. We only get so many beds as far as youth detention, and if they call the probate to get an emergency committal or to put someone in, you would probably be involved with that, is that correct? As far as negotiating?
That's kind of a unique question, because actually what it is, there is a difference now, because when you're talking about youth detention, you jump kind of onto the criminal side of it, while the probate side is more on the commitment side.
Well, let me change that to youth mental health.
There we go. Okay, I understand. So you're correct. We have a very limited amount of beds. I will definitely say they're less than 10, and there's 3 counties that share those spaces. And so if we have to do a commit and we don't have a bed space available, it has to go into a system where everybody else in the state of Alabama starts running in circles, trying to find an open bed to get that individual in it, no matter what their age is.
Okay, so that's great. Now we're going to switch to veterans committal. Can you talk a little bit about veterans?
Absolutely, I can. And actually, being a disabled veteran myself, I have a lot of inside information about the VA system. I work very closely with the VA here in the state of Alabama, and I actually understand the entire workings of how it works with a mental health facility, how they get their medications, if they're going to do the community care system, how they become outpatients, and working with the VA system itself. I think I've got a lot of inside information. So I've actually been assigned, when we have the VA cases that pop up, you can guarantee that in the courtroom as the guardian ad litem, I'm going to be there to protect the veteran.
Okay, and that's great. And I asked that question because we have done committals, and the law has changed
Yes.
within the last 3 to 4 years, where we used to be able to do a veterans committal, probate judge, with the spouse or the parents or someone signing for that emergency committal, and then have the sheriff transport them to Montgomery to the VA hospital, and then they get treated. But now it's a 72-hour review, I believe. It's a long that they have to come up for a review, and the probate have to make a decision on whether the VA keeps them or not. Could you talk about that?
I can, to a certain extent of it. There is a somewhat different procedure in place. We like to work directly with the VA when this happens because their situation is different and the beds for them is much more different. So it's easier to get them when a situation happens, to get them down to Montgomery for the 72-hour evaluation. And then it comes back to us. And a lot of times we really want to deal with that on a case-by-case and a one-on-one situation, because the VA itself is going to send psychiatrists from the hospital and they're going to work with us. So it doesn't exactly work the same way as it does for everyone else, but we do our very best, and I see us only getting better at it.
That's great. Now, we talked about that. Let's talk about what the changes that you are interested in making in the probate office that's going to be centered around not just mental health, but around, how should I put it?
The community.
Youth, mental health as far as adults, youth, and just the community as a whole. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so honestly, the office itself overall, the procedures and the systems that are in place are actually good systems and they are working. Are there some changes that I would probably like to make? I would like to make it where we're a little bit more accessible. Maybe if we have some more cross-training, or if we were able to set it up so that our hours were a little extended, just to make sure that we're always available for people no matter what the situation is. Because I know with COVID and the days right now with a lot of people getting sick, sometimes we have a lot of people out at one time. And it would be great to have it to where people are cross-trained so that certain areas, especially the areas that deal with your deeds, that's the biggest thing. People come in at the last minute, or they have deadlines to get filings done on a sale of a piece of land. We need to make sure that that's staying open. A lot of the other departments already have enough people to do that.
And you already cut over into my next segment, which is the probate office is not just for mental health and committal, but we talk about land, we talk about deed, we talk about driver's license, we talk about mapping, so people can go in and know how to find the mapping of their property. Talk about that.
Absolutely. We are the repository for the county. The probate courthouse actually touches every single person's life almost every day, whether it's from birth to death, because we cover it all. Whether we're going to store, dealing with adoptions, that's one of our biggest areas. And we'll talk about that later if that's okay.
Sure.
But so we'll go from all the way from there to, you're right, walking in and renewing your driver's license, to getting a business license, to getting a hunting, fishing license. You name it, we're going to do all of the licenses. We also are a huge repository for, if you want to look up 3 generations ago, you want to find out your piece of land and what did your granddaddy have to begin with. Or you wanted to look up an old will, believe it or not, those are in there. So we have over 200 years worth of data that is stored throughout that building for you to come in and pull copies off of it. So beyond that, we do all the real estate. We do, like I said, the.
And also, let's let the viewers know and understand about, like veterans, when you get out of the service and you retire, you need to bring your DD 214 and put it on file. Also, if you got a will, citizens have a will and they want to put it on file, because if they lose it, they can come back to the probate office and look it up. Talk about the importance of filing certain documents like the DD-214 wheels and stuff of that nature.
And absolutely, that is very true, because a lot of times soldiers, they need their DD2. In case anybody doesn't know, a DD-214 is kind of like, hey, I'm out of the job now. Here's my summary of what I did. It's a very important document that they need to have in order to get their benefits or their monthly VA allowances. And so when you bring it into us, being a DD-214 is a little bit different since it's a federal document. So we've got different rules and regulations for storing of those items and where we keep them at. So you're right, that's very crucial that we have that. And any other major document that you have, such as your will, if you want to bring those in, but we have, for example, all your land plats, if you do foreclosures, if you sell or buy a piece of land, everything goes into now a computer copy versus a original hard copy. So we have the hard copies, but we're trying now to scan everything in to go electronic.
Okay, now, in closing, I want you to just take 3 minutes to 4 and just talk about whatever Belinda wants to talk about, what she wants the citizens to understand, why she's running for the probate judge office, and whatever you want to add.
Thank you, Leroy. Absolutely. So I would say that I'm on this path because I feel like I'm being put on this path. I feel like this is where I'm supposed to go. This is where I'm needed the most. I've been doing this job for quite some time now, and I feel that I'm very educated and experienced in the area. I'm doing it every day. So that's why I believe that I'm the best candidate for the job, because I'm going to start off from day one already knowing the job and not having to be taught. But I also think, to me, two of the most important areas about the probate judge position is guardianships and adoptions. And guardianships are near and dear to my heart. Right now I serve as the guardian ad litem for all the individuals that come through that I'm assigned, and I'm there to protect them, to make sure that if they need to be committed or they need to have a guardianship, that it's being done. But if they don't, I'm making sure that that's not happening also. I'm here to take care of them. And now the next thing that's really important to me is the adoptions, because that's the biggest thing that'll ever happen to one person in their life, is when they become adopted, they change their name, their lifestyle, their culture, their entire family. They leave behind those attachments. And the new family that takes them on takes on some very great responsibilities that they don't realize, that when you do take on an adoption or a child that's been adopted, that child is now yours for life. You can never disinherit that child like you could a blood child. This is a serious decision. And the amount of different types of inspections that we have to do before they get adopted, the amount of work you have to do with the DHR agency, what you have to do with the local attorneys, and even the fact that the laws, when it gets down to adoptions, they are being changed consistently throughout the year. And that's why it's important.
Now, since you're talking about adoption, tell the people, when you talk about the laws have changed, that during adoption, they used to not have to inspect a home. But now that the laws have changed and you come in to do an adoption, DHR or someone else, whoever the probate assigned, has to go out to the family home.
Okay, so actually what's happening is that originally you would have to do an inspection, and DHR would go out to do the homes. Now DHR still goes out if it's a child that's in foster care. Now, but if it's just a normal family that wants to adopt a child, DHR is no longer, as of this year, authorized to do that. That family has to go out and actually pay a third-party contractor to come out to the home and do these. So that's a very good question, because that's one of the major changes that has just recently happened. And our problem is meeting these timelines. So I've worked with DHR and spoken with them directly and found out that they have 90 days to get their process done. So with all these new changes and with these inspections and who's doing the inspection, if we get behind on those, the adoption won't go through. So that's why it's so important that our office and DHR and the attorneys and the families work tightly together and as quickly as possible.
And last but not least, you just mentioned the attorneys and everything. So one thing I would like you to talk about right quick is how that each person has to have a representative. And when for instance, mental health. If you go into probate and say your spouse is going to sign a paper for emergency committal, well, the court still assigns an attorney to represent the person that we're committing or trying to commit. So talk about that right quick.
Okay, so that's the guardian ad litem. That's me. That's what I'm assigned by the court to do. So, because you've got the one attorney who comes in and he's actually working for the petitioner, which is the family member that is trying to get them either committed or a guardianship.
Emergency committal.
That's right, exactly. And then sometimes it's the sheriff's department, to be honest, because sometimes there's not family members, it's just someone they find.
Right.
So you are correct. But the person that is assigned to take care of them to make sure they get a fair shake and a true evaluation is going to be the guardian ad litem, and that's me. I'm assigned to do
Right
those
now, that's
cases.
you.
That is me.
Right
yes.
now.
Right now. I am
Okay.
the attorney right now that does that. Yes.
Okay, in closing, I want you to take 1 minute and tell the viewers why you should be elected as the probate judge.
Okay, I can do that in 1 minute. First of all, I believe that I am the right person because I've got all the education needed. Well, I wouldn't say all, but I'm saying I've got extensive education in the area of probate law. I am a barred attorney in good standing here in the state of Alabama. So I do the job every day. So with the education, with the experience, doing it in the courthouse right here, I'm taking care of everybody. Me, myself, my entire family, I mean, we live here, we work here, we shop here. This is our county, this is our home. We give everything back to this county, and I give everything back by being an attorney here because I care about the people in Russell County. They mean so much to me that I'm willing to do pro bono cases and unusually strange cases and call me up in the middle of the day or the middle of the night because they do. And I already work so closely with everybody that now actually doing it in the position of the probate judge, I could take all of that together and do it on a daily basis to be there for the people of Russell County and give them the very best justice that I can.
Well, you heard it straight from the candidate's mouth, Miss Belinda Strickland.
Thank you so much for your time.
We want to thank her for not thinking it was robbery to come out to be on the Veterans View show to let the citizens of Phoenix City of Russell County, Alabama know why she's running for the probate judge office of Russell County, Alabama. Thank you.
While our roots remain firmly planted in the heart of East Alabama, we're taking a bold step forward to expand our reach. You've always known us as East Alabama Advertising. Now let us reintroduce ourselves as AMP. As we embrace this exciting transformation, we're not leaving behind our core principles. In fact, we are clearly defining them and carrying them forward with a renewed spirit. Our commitment to excellence, creativity, and a deep understanding of our clients' unique needs remains unwavering. At AMP, our mission is clear: to harness innovative strategies and technology, to amplify your message, expand your reach, and drive results. By leveraging our expertise in digital marketing, creative storytelling, and data-driven insights, we amplify your brand's voice to captivate your target audience and make a lasting impact. We believe in the power of reach. We focus on tapping into our partners' ideal customers to reach them right where they are. We are community-minded and relationship-driven. We combine strategic thinking, creative flair, and technical expertise to create compelling advertising campaigns across all channels, whether it's through engaging social media campaigns, captivating video content that tells your story, or highly targeted digital advertising. We are easy to work with because we care about the success of each of our partners. Your success is our success. AMP, Advertising, Marketing, Production. We're
here with Shamari Figures, who's running for the 2nd Congressional District in our new district that was created here in Alabama. Mr. Figures, would you please introduce yourself and let us know just something about yourself, your family, and everything, because you have a rich history here in Alabama.
Look, thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you again for your service to this country, and to the community that you still engage in, even in pulling together programs and opportunities like this to get the message out. My name is Shamari Figures. I am a proud product of District 2. I was born and raised in Mobile, Alabama, the son of two state elected officials that many people across the state know. My father was state senator, the late state senator Michael Figures, and after his sudden passing, my mother has been in the state senate since then. She was previously on Mobile's city council, but she's been in the state senate since then. And I kind of grew up in a world down in Mobile where, you know, there was this expectation that you ask yourself, what can I take what God has given me in the form of whether it's resources or skills or experiences or talents, networks, whatever it is, how can I take that and put it to use for the benefit of the people and places that mean the most to me? And for me, that's always been the people of Alabama. It's always been the people of Mobile. It's always been the people of what is now District 2. My family on both sides, my mother and my father's family, going back to slavery, come out of this district in Clark County. And so this, that sort of sentiment is what led me to a career in federal government. And my career has taken me across all 3 branches of federal government. I've had the privilege to work for a federal judge and also go on and work for President Obama in the White House, and spent several years in Congress, the place we are seeking to go to now. I spent several years there as a staffer myself, and also spent time working at the Department of Justice under 2 different administrations. And so I tell people I've had the blessing of learning how government works. Not that I agree with how government works in many respects, but I've had the benefit of learning how it works from the inside out. And so I know how we can take federal government and leverage it and try our best to leverage it for the benefit of the people and places here in Russell County and Barber County and across this entire district. And so that's why we got in this race. And that's what we feel we have the benefit to offer, because we can make federal government do the good that it is designed to do, to address challenges and take care of the people like our children, our educators, our school systems, our veterans, our healthcare systems. We can make it do good where government can play a role.
Okay, thank you. But I want you to also let the people know about your experience in school, as far as you was on a high school championship team and where you went to college at, so that they can get a better feel of you.
Absolutely. I grew up playing all 3 sports, I guess, like most people down here. I grew up playing the sort of big 3 here in Alabama: basketball, baseball, and football. And in high school, I stuck to basketball, won a 6A state championship in 2002 at LaFleur High School. I then went on and just followed the path of the books. I didn't play college sports at all, but I went to the University of Alabama both for undergrad and then followed my father's footsteps into University of Alabama's law school. My father integrated the University of Alabama's law school back in 1969. He and several others were the first blacks to be admitted, and 3 years later he was among the first black to graduate from the University of Alabama Law School. And so I followed my father's footsteps from an educational perspective, at least through law school, and that sort of career, that combined with my education career going back to a kid. I mean, I'm a product of public schools, a proud product of public schools. Out in Mobile, Alabama. I went to public middle schools, high schools, and elementary school as well. And that's what prepared me to go on and have the career that I've had, and give me the sort of background and foundation that I have with me now.
And before we go any further, I want you to give a shout out to your wife and your newborn.
Yes. The newborn is not so newborn anymore. She just turned 1 year old a few weeks ago to join our soon-to-be 3-year-old and our recently 5-year-old. Those are our children. My wife, Kalisha, is a rock star. She is the reason we were able to run for this. We met both in that spirit of public service, working for President Obama in the White House several years ago. And look, the family that's what keeps you grounded. That's what keeps you motivated and inspired to make this district better for them, and make sure that you're living up to the standards and expectations they have of you.
Okay, great. Now we're ready to dive in. And the first question that I have for you, as reported by Forbes magazine, Alabama average earning wage falls below the national standard. Upon your election to Congress, how do you intend to collaborate with state and national agencies to develop enhanced opportunities in Alabama?
Yeah, I think it's a conversation that is much deeper than just, than just starting at the workforce level. I believe that the way to the future is making sure that we have a better equipped and better prepared workforce of the future, both to be able to attract the types of companies that we want investing here in Russell County and across this district, and also to maintain them. But I do not believe that we can have that sort of workforce development without first focusing on the products that we're putting out of our public school systems. We have to ensure that we're making the sufficient investments in our school systems. We cannot say that we're serious about developing a workforce of the future. We cannot say that we're taking serious the obligation that we have to invest in our children and invest in the workforce that we want to develop if we're not investing those resources, if we're doing everything to divest in those resources. As you know, here in the state of Alabama, they just passed a school choice bill that at a minimum is going to take $100 million away from public education next year. That is money away from our largest workforce development program, and that is our school systems. The majority, over 85% of people in this state are the products, like myself, of public school systems. It is our largest workforce development program, and so we have to make sure that we're collaborating at the national level, state level, and most importantly at the local school system level to make sure that we're preparing, that we're doing everything that we can to have the investments in place to recruit and retain the best teachers, that our kids are able to be educated in the most modernized and technologically modern environments in our schools, and doing just everything that we absolutely can to make sure that we are providing the environment that's necessary to prepare that sort of workforce of the future. Because companies that come into your your area, or that are exploring coming into your area, unless they are coming for a natural resource that is within your in your community, they're coming for your workforce. That's the most valuable asset that a community can provide a company, is a workforce. And so we have to make sure that we're investing in preparing that workforce for the future.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, the next question is, the establishment of unions has significantly contributed to the individual ascending into the middle class. May I respectfully inquire about your stance on a union within Alabama?
Yeah, so look, I think it is it's a conversation that you have to sit back and ask yourself, how does it personally impact you? And for me, I'm the grandson of 2 union men. I'm the son of a labor lawyer, and spent time working on Capitol Hill for a huge labor proponent and Senator Sherrod Brown. So I am a believer that when men and women and workers decide that they want to organize collectively, that they want to join a union, that we have an obligation to make sure that that their rights are protected when they so choose to do that. Look, we know the long history of unions and of labor in this country, and we know that workers in general are who makes this economy go. And so we have to do everything that we can to protect workers, to make sure that we're creating environments and conditions where workers can have access to good quality paying jobs with good benefits that can prepare them for the future.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next topic, we're going to move into reproductive rights. Okay, please, what is your opinion on states can regulate reproductive rights policies?
Look, I believe that it is not the role of government to tell a woman what she has to do with her own body. That is a decision that should be left to the women of this country in consultation with their doctors, their families, their spiritual leaders, whoever is in their circle that they want advising them on such personal decisions. That's where it should be. We have gotten into a situation here in Alabama where even basic reproductive health care options, even IVF, has come into question because of the extreme nature and obsession that Republicans have with controlling women and telling them what they must do with their own bodies. And so I, for one, don't believe in that. I believe that if we continue down this slippery slope, the next thing that is up is going to be contraception, and that is going to become jeopardized and lead to even more extreme measures taken by the other side. So in Congress, I would certainly support legislation that gives women the right to choose and put us back in a place where we were when we had the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Well, thank you. You just answered the second question about IVF. So, so we'll move on to education, school choice vouchers. What happens to public schools with school choice?
We run the risk of them closing, to put it plain and simple, because what is inevitably going to happen, everywhere they've implemented these school choice programs, it costs more than they bargained for. And so just here in the state of Alabama, I believe they've allocated $100 million just for next year. That number is only going to go up. So what does that mean? That's money coming away from public school systems. That's money coming away from being able to compensate teachers. That's money coming away from being able to build new and modern facilities. That's money coming away from the schools that we know, that we love, that we grew up in, that are the foundational backbones of many other communities across this state and across this district. That is money coming away from the ability of a Central Phoenix City or a John L. LaFleur High School to be able to grow and thrive and be the types of schools that we want them to be the types of institutions and environments that they created, and those sort of sources of pride and connectivity in the communities that they are. That's what happens. At the end of the day, children are going to be left behind because everyone won't be able to go and take a voucher and go to a private school. Everyone won't be able to take a voucher and go to a charter school. There is not enough charter and private schools here in the state of Alabama to educate the masses. It's just not. That infrastructure does not exist. So what happens? Those children are going to be picked out of our public school system. Money is going to follow them, which means that our public school systems that need the resources the most, they will be lacking in those resources. And so if we continue to go down this, what I ultimately believe that it means is that there will be many schools across this district and across this state that will no longer have the benefit of being open, that they will literally no longer have the funding necessary to sustain their enrollment, to sustain their facilities, and to sustain their existence. And so I think it is a significant problem. And again, beyond that part of it, again, our public school systems, they are, regardless of how you feel about charter and private schools, sit those feelings to the side. Let's just look at math here, right? Let's just look at just basic math. There's not enough charter and private schools in this state to take the place of public schools. It is not. And so therefore our public schools will be responsible for still churning out at least 80 to 85% of the students who come through and get a high school diploma. And so we have to make sure that school system is sufficiently funded, because again, our public school system, whether you like it or not, is our largest workforce development program, period. And so we cannot say that we're serious about developing jobs of the future and serious about placing people on a pathway for good jobs with good benefits to be able to get into the middle class or above. We cannot say that we're truly serious about that conversation if we are divesting from our largest workforce development program, which is our public school systems. And along with that, I will say that it is imperative that we treat our educators better. We do not value and respect our educators through our policies in a way that truly reflects the impact that they have on communities across this country. You cannot name me a single other profession that touches and prepares every single other profession. Teachers and school support personnel, they do just that. They do much more than they sign up to do, especially this day and age. We're asking them to be not just teachers, but they have to be counselors, they have to be therapists, they have to be parents, they have to be providers in many respects. They're going above and beyond for us to be able to prepare children for the future, and we're not doing the same, neither in how we pay them nor in the benefits that we're making sure that they have. Here in the state of Alabama, a teacher that decides to have a family of his or her own, they get 0 paid days off right now in the state of Alabama, which is crazy. Right? Zero. The people that we expect to take care of everybody else's children every single day, the people that we expect to deal with all of the problems coming from, from homes and communities and outside of the school into school, those same people, we tell them that your value is 0 paid days off when you decide to have a family of your own. And so again, we cannot say that we're being truly serious and doing our best about preparing our workforce of the future, our children for the future, if we're not willing to make the investments that are necessary and to being able to recruit and retain the best educators that we possibly can in the state.
Well, thank you. We have one more question on the voucher program, and that's how can we prevent our schools from resegregating if it is expanded, the voucher program?
We got to vote. That's it at the end of the day. We got to get out and vote. We got to get out and vote and make your voices heard and support people that understand the realities of that a separate and segregated education system is by its very nature unequal. It's not right, it's not fair. And so we have to do everything that we can to make sure that we're supporting those people who understand that value. Look, I come out of a public school system post-integration. My father was actually part of the process in integrating University of Alabama's law school. So I can sit here and tell you as an indirect beneficiary of integrated school systems, what the possibility is, right, in terms of how it can affect your life going forward, in terms of how it can affect and impact communities going forward. And so we have an obligation to make sure that we do not slide back into an era of segregated schools. Far too many of our schools now, even in this day and age, have gotten that way. And we have to do everything that we can to make sure we don't continue to go down that path. Because as we go down that path, the resources or lack thereof, they will follow down that path as well, and we will end up in that situation where many of our current schools, the ones we know and love, do not have the resources to sustain their existence.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move into healthcare. Okay, due to a lack of a Medicaid expansion, a healthcare desert has been created for those who live in the Black Belt of Alabama. Women are traveling over 50 miles to deliver a baby. If you have a medical emergency, you may die before you reach a hospital. So the question is, which individual or entity benefit from the decision to refrain from expanding Medicaid? And conversely, who stands to benefit from the expansion of Medicaid?
Look, I'll tell you, we all lose from the failure to expand Medicaid. We all win by Medicaid being expanded. The reason I say that is this. You alluded to some of the healthcare challenges that we face in this district, but look, it is a real thing. This is not these aren't talking points. This is real life that we're talking about. If you're born here in the state of Alabama, you're expected to die for all intents and purposes before anybody else born in any other state in the United States of America, with the exception of just a couple of other states who we outlive by only just a few months on average, Mississippi, West Virginia. That is real. That is a real statistic. We have the shortest life expectancy for statistical purposes of any state in the United States of America. And a lot of that boils down to healthcare access to doctors, and access to doctors not just when you are sick, but access to doctors throughout your life, particularly when you are younger and healthier, so we can keep you on that path of being healthier throughout your life. This is real in Alabama. Just since we've been in this race, we've had 3 hospitals close their doors to being traditional hospitals as we know them. And all of them have been in rural communities. Just a couple of weeks ago, the largest hospital in Montgomery County missed a bond payment, and hopefully it can get back on its feet so that its closure is not something that becomes a reality. Too many of our counties across this district struggle with the lack of basic healthcare practitioners. Half of the counties in this district don't have a pediatrician. Let that sink in for a minute. Half of the counties in this district do not have a pediatrician in the county. Many of the counties here have just unusually long wait times to be able to get to a hospital by virtue of an ambulance if something happens to them. And this is not something that we can tolerate. We have the ability to stop this. We have the ability to make a significant impact on this through expanding Medicaid. The state of Alabama has refused to do this now for almost 15 years. And it is unacceptable. It will provide health care coverage for 300,000 more people, at least 300,000 more people here in the state of Alabama, but our state legislature refuses to do it. It is much, much cheaper for us to expand Medicaid and pay for people to go to the doctor earlier in life than it is to pay for those same people to be on dialysis when they get older, because they're dealing with conditions that could have been avoided or treated at a minimum when they were younger, earlier in life, or they could have been placed on a pathway where they would not have developed those conditions in the first place. So the argument that it just costs too much money to make sure that people live longer lives here in the state of Alabama, that just doesn't resonate with me. It falls flat with me, and it does not make sense. I believe healthcare is a basic right. I believe that healthcare is something that people in the United States of America, the greatest nation that we have ever known, should not have to deal with the challenges of being able to go to a doctor when they are sick. This expands into the veterans community as well. We have too many people. I was in Washington County last night, and they were explaining to me that they have to drive an hour and a half to get veterans treatment. People who have put their lives on the line for this country having to drive an hour and a half just to get to a doctor or to get their children to a doctor that's covered. And so Medicaid expansion will go a long way here in the state of Alabama, a long way. It would help bridge that gap of people who currently do not have health insurance options because they make too much money, they make a little too much money to currently qualify for Medicaid, but they don't make enough money realistically to be able to afford insurance on an open marketplace without jeopardizing, being able to live and being able to get by. And so I think we have an obligation at the federal government to make sure that we can again pass the legislation that incentivizes the state of Alabama through reimbursements to expand Medicaid. In the state of Alabama and the governor, they need to get the job done, period. We live the shortest lives in America, and 40 plus other states in this country have already done this. So this is not a Democratic issue, this is not a Republican issue, this is not a black issue, a white issue, a male issue, a female issue. This is an issue about life and death here in the state of Alabama, and do we genuinely care about satisfying our obligation to our citizens here in the state of making sure that they have the best possible health care to live the longest possible lives that we can here in the state.
And just to follow up, is Medicaid is still available for the state to accept?
So absolutely. So Medicaid is a program that is a state administered and federally funded program, or at least federally matched program from a funding standpoint. And so it's still here. But what happened when the Affordable Care Act was passed, they gave states the option to expand Medicaid to get more people more coverage. And the state of Alabama is one of just a handful of states that has still refused to do that. And they offered, the federal government offered to reimburse the states for a set amount of time if they agreed to expand Medicaid, and they still have refused to do that. But look, this gets deeper than just the Medicaid, right? Like there are, when we talk about health care, when we hear the other side say they want to repeal and replace Obamacare, and all we ever actually hear about is the repeal part. We're still waiting on the replacement ideas. Former President Trump said he had concepts of a plan to replace it, but we don't, concept has never been a plan. And a concept doesn't really work when you're talking about knocking millions of children off their parents' health insurance who can now stay on until they're 26. A concept doesn't work when you're talking about being able to deny women health care coverage simply by virtue of them having the pre-existing condition of being able to give birth, right? It doesn't work. Concepts don't work for that, right? So we're talking about going back to a regime. When they talk about repealing Obamacare, repealing the Affordable Care Act, we're talking about going back to an era where literally if you have any diagnosis at all in your life, you can be denied health care coverage. Your children can no longer stay on until you're 26. They want to repeal other measures that will allow us to, that currently allows us to cap the price of insulin, that allows us to cap the prices of prescription drugs across the country. And so we cannot go back to that era. We simply cannot. And so ensuring healthcare access and ensuring that we have the appropriate level of access and protections under the law is something that is vital and something I will fight for every single day in Congress.
Well, thank you. And we're going to move on to our next topic, which is immigration. Is Alabama experiencing the effects of immigration from Central and South America? If so, what impact is it having on Alabama?
Look, this nation, obviously, look, we are a nation of immigrants. For the most part, unless you were African American and your ancestors came here via the slave trade, you are a product of an immigrant. You're someone who immigrated here. We have a long, rich history of immigration. We have a long, rich history of immigrants making vital and valuable contributions to this country and to this nation. And we have a immigration system that I think everyone acknowledges it needs to be changed. It needs to be changed. When I was in Congress before, we worked and actually voted on measures to change it. But we keep running into opposition. Just recently here, we had a bipartisan immigration plan that was drafted by one of the most conservative members of the Senate, and Senator James Lankford out of Oklahoma, that was teed up and ready for a vote that would have provided much needed resources and much needed reforms to our current immigration system. And Donald Trump himself personally killed the plan because he's more interested in running on a problem than working with a solution. And so the realities of it are this: we have an immigration problem, but as a nation, we have to fix it, and we can fix it. People acknowledge that there are changes that need to be made to our immigration and our asylum system to be able to better process and make decisions related to people who are allowed in the country and people who are not. But at the end of the day, look, I've been going around this district now for over a year, and or the better part of a year. And immigration is not the issue that people come up and talk to me about in terms of what is the most pressing issue in their community. They want to know why their hospital is closing in Bullitt County. They want to know why in Monroe County they got to drive an hour and a half to be able to have a baby. They want to know why, it takes an hour and a half to get an ambulance sometimes in Macon County, right? They want to know how we can get better jobs here, how we can build new schools here, how we can modernize schools that were built with New Deal money after World War II, right? They want to know about these things. They want to talk about the real problems that people have every single day in the communities across Alabama, not just issues that they see on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or these national issues. That's not what we're hearing about as we travel across. My opponent took a trip to the border recently, and I've actually been to the border to work on these issues and learn lessons at the border that we brought back to Washington, D.C. when I was in Congress and actually got introduced and ultimately passed in legislation to provide more resources there at the border for our CBP agents. But as we've gone across this district, that's not the border that people are concerned about. They're worried about why they don't have internet at the border of Monroe and Connecticut County. They're worried about how many county borders they have to pass before they get to a pediatrician or a hospital. And so the realities of it is, do we have a problem with our immigration system? Absolutely, and one that we can fix, but we can certainly walk and chew gum at the same time. People here want real life solutions to the problems that we face here day to day here in the state of Alabama.
Great, well, thank you. We're going into our last topic now, which is gun control. What is the significance of the Second Amendment?
Now, look, the Second Amendment it's a foundational piece of our Constitution, and one that has been there to ensure that America remains a democracy, and where people have certain rights to be able to defend themselves and defend this nation if necessary. But gun control is not a Second Amendment issue. Gun control is certainly not exclusively a Second Amendment issue. We're talking about how do we save lives? How do we save lives of children? Because, regardless of what you say, when the Second Amendment was written, fully automatic weapons didn't exist, right? Glock switches didn't exist. Bump stocks didn't exist, right? The murders and homicides that we see here, they didn't exist back then. And so we have an obligation to protect our communities from gun violence, make sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have them, guns out of the hands of people who have shown qualities and characteristics of handling them unsafely, or certainly making decisions that we feel would objectively jeopardize people's health and well-being. And we can do that. That is not mutually exclusive. Nobody wants to take guns away from people who should have them. What we want to do is create an environment where we don't have to worry about our kids being shot and killed at school, with a 14-year-old gets access to a weapon that their parent got. What we want to do is make sure that people who have shown the propensity to be able to or exhibit the characteristics or signs of harming themselves or other people, that they don't have access to weapons. And we certainly do not need weapons of war tearing apart communities across this country. And so it is a very commonsensical thing to make sure that we have sensible controls in place to make sure that we keep weapons out of the hands of people who do not need them. However, I will say this, the solution to gun violence is not found exclusively in gun regulations. The solution to gun violence is a community responsibility that we all have at every level of government and at every level of the community. It is something that starts at home. I think we all agree with that. But what happens when home does not work? Right? We have to make sure that we have the things in place from a government standpoint and from a community standpoint that reduces the likelihood of a kid from ending up on one side or the other of a gun at some point down the road. That looks like, to me, better investments in our public education system to make sure that we're preparing kids when they come out, that they are job ready and they are equipped to take on the next phase of life that's going to put them on a pathway to being able to earn a living and work harder throughout their life to be able to elevate their status in society. To me, that looks like bringing back funding for the programs that existed for so many years in communities that kept kids off of the street and involved in a structured environment. Whether we're talking about summer programs, summer lunch programs, we're talking about after school programs, investing more in our parks and recreations departments to ensure that we have the types of leaders in our communities that are keeping kids embraced with positive examples of what they can be in life and keeping them out of the streets and out of pathways that increase the likelihood of them making a poor decision in that respect. So it is a community-wide effort. It starts at home. Government certainly has a role to play, but it is not the sole fixer of this issue. It's also an issue that we didn't get here overnight. Did not get here overnight. And unfortunately, it's not something we're going to be able to flip a switch and get out of overnight either. It is a responsibility that we have as a community. Law enforcement has a role. Legislators have a role. Pastors have a role. Parents have the greatest role. Teachers have a role. School systems have a role. Employers have a role. We all have a role in helping us get out of this because this is an economic issue. At the end of the day, people do not want to live in communities where there is significant gun violence. People do not want to start businesses in communities where there is significant gun violence. And people certainly do not want to raise families and buy homes in communities there. And that affects all of us. That affects the vitality of every single community that we have. And to be quite frank with you, this is an issue that hits us personally. I'm not immune from the impacts of gun violence. I've lost friends to gun violence. I have had family members that have been victimized by gun violence. My mother's house was shot up. So this is something that this is not just some issue that I'm talking about from the periphery. This is an issue that is touching people like myself and people who I personally know, and it's not an issue that I don't think we can fix.
Thank you. And our last question is it possible for the Second Amendment rights to coexist with gun control policies?
Absolutely. I think we just hit on that a lot. I think what people want is sensible gun laws. Like at the end of the day, we want gun laws that make sense. We want gun laws that prevent the types of weapons and the types of people that cause mass trauma, that cause any sort of significant gun violence. We want those laws to be on the book to better protect our communities as a whole, and they can certainly coexist. They have coexisted for years in this country. And they still coexist, even to this day. But what I can tell you is this: what we should not have to coexist with is an environment here in the state of Alabama where our state legislature, in opposition from almost every law enforcement organization, passes a law that says you no longer need a permit and the requisite background check that comes along with that permit to carry a gun, a concealed weapon. That makes no sense at all, and the state legislature should correct it immediately because that jeopardizes the safety of our communities. It removes a valuable tool from law enforcement to be able to take guns off of the streets when they find them when they shouldn't be there. Now we're just the wild, wild west in terms of people being able to carry concealed weapons. Nobody likes this law. It polls extraordinarily unpopular, even here in the state of Alabama, but our state legislature found it wise to make us an example of a state with just irrational gun laws. And that is something that we've heard about as we've traveled across this district, from city leaders, from police officers, from police chiefs, from county leaders, and from some of our state leaders, that we cannot say that we're serious about gun violence when we remove one of the most valuable tools in preventing future acts of gun violence from our law enforcement officers.
No, okay, thank you. Now, what I would like to ask you to do is to look at that camera and tell our citizens of Russell County and Phoenix City, Alabama, and the 2nd Congressional District why we should select you to represent us in the 2nd Congressional District.
Well, Mr. Davis, thanks again for having us and for giving us this opportunity, and thanks again for your service to this country and to this nation, to this community rather. Listen, on November 5th, we have an option. We have an option to send somebody to Washington, D.C. who's experienced, that knows how federal government works and knows how we can best leverage federal government for the benefit of the people and places in this district, the communities here, for the issues that resonate here, for the issues that matter and are important here. This is not a time to send someone to Washington, D.C. to go up there to be a puppet or a pawn in a broader political game. We want people that can go to Washington, D.C. and put forth the interests of the people who sent them there and the interests of the communities that they represent. That is what you get with me. Someone whose number one job in Washington, D.C. every day is not to do what it takes to get reelected. The number one job is doing what it takes to make life outcomes better for people here in District 2. From Mobile County to Montgomery County to Macon County to Russell and Barber, Crenshaw, Pike, and every county in between that make this district. The issues that are priorities to you will be the issues that are priorities for me in a representative capacity for you in Washington, D.C. And that's what you get with me, somebody that's going to take it to the mat every single day to improve life here in District 2, to make this district the most economically viable place, to make this the most economically attractive place, to make this a district where people want to live, where they want to return to after they go off to school, where people want to retire to, where companies want to locate, where veterans want to come. This is a district where we can certainly do that. We can certainly do that. We have a significant opportunity now to get the type of representation across this district that's going to go to Washington and go to bat for the issues that matter to you, and not the issues that we hear a president tell us we should care about and take the positions that a national party tell us that we must take. My priority every single day will be the people of Russell County, the people of Mobile County, Washington County, Clark County, Monroe County, Connecticut County, Bullock County. That is why I'm running, because I know that we can leverage the experience that I've had to be able to get us into a place where we can actually get things done to address the issues that are most relevant right here in Russell County.
Thank you, Mr. Figures. And I hope that while you are watching this program, that you see what Mr. Figures is running for and who he wants to represent. And we'll see you in a little bit to finish up this show. Thank you so much, Mr. Figures, for coming.
Thank you.